Hello and welcome aboard Whale Pod. I am your Captain Whale, and in today's video, it is Friday, October 14th. So you know what that means? It is the day Nilu's banner goes live, so you also know what that means. It is time for my Cyno review at long last. I am purposely putting this review at the end, well, after the end of Cyno's banner cycle, so you guys do not feel encouraged to wish for him by my review. If you do like what you see with Cyno here, feel free to wait for his rerun, but please, seeing as it is impossible unless you have a time machine, do not wish for Cyno. Or I don't know, I think the banner actually changes differently in different time zones, so you might have less than 2 hours left for Cyno's banner by the time I upload this. Still, just don't wish for him. Now, if it's still up. If it's not still up, well, you have no choice. I was going to get this out earlier, but then Scarabs told me no. So I decided to do what I did with Tignari and wait until the banner had ended in my time zone. So, with that said and done, let's get into what I think of Cyno. First, I'll show off my build here. I have 67 crit rate and 177 crit damage, with 140 energy recharge, 1976 attack, 948 defense, a little bit sad there, and... well, sad because I have so much of it. And 396 elemental mastery. Of course, stamina is 240 because I have completed both the Mondstadt and Leah statues of the 7. I do have his Staff of the Scarlet Sands signature weapon on him. I will say this is his best in slot if you can afford it. Do not go on a weapon banner unless you are looking for a bad time. However, not enhance, we want switch. Other options that are good for Cyno. I don't think there's been a character to date so far where Staff of Homa is objectively bad. That is part of the reasons why I think it is a lazily designed weapon. As far as other 5 stars go, though, Primordial Jade Winged Spear has half as much crit rate as the Staff of the Scarlet Sands does, but does have higher base attack. Cyno does get a pretty good conversion from Elemental Mastery to base attack with the Staff of the Scarlet Sands, so that does sort of make up for it, even if the attack isn't base and won't be multiplied by your others. Jade and Homa are probably the only other two I'd put with Cyno here. Calamity Queller is really good if you just care about that super high base attack like Shenhe does, and the passive works well with things that actually don't snapshot, so I do think Calamity Queller is probably the one that works the least well with a notorious polearm user. Other weapons that I do think could have potential for Cyno out of the 5-star range. Let's head over to the Missive Wind Spear, as this was designed with the purpose of being a free-to-play weapon for Cyno. It gives him elemental mastery and extra attack when triggering elemental reactions. You do want to put Cyno in a team that is utilizing Aggravate to get the most out of him. He attacks very quickly and frequently, so his ability to maximize the damage bonus from Aggravate will be greater. Dragon's Bane here gives him some elemental mastery, which will help with his aggravates, so even though it unfortunately is Hydro and Pyro instead of Pyro and Electro like the Lion's Roar is, it's still a serviceable option as well. If you're splurging for the Battle Pass, Deathmatch is probably one of the better ones here, because it does have the very high crit rate similar to that of Staff of the Scarlet Sands. Even though it does have low base attack, it does have its Gladiator passive, which does make up for that. Mine is Refinement 5, because I have redeemed 5 Battle Passes for Deathmatch in order to get it up to max for Rosaria. However, with yours being less, Refinement 1's numbers are 16% defense and attack if there are at least 2 opponents nearby, and if there's only 1 or no opponents nearby, it will be 24% attack. Other 4-star weapons, I do think the Craftable Moon Piercer, being another elemental mastery weapon, is actually fairly decent for Cyno. Once again, he does get a lot of damage being a post-Dendro Electro unit from the new Dendro and Electro reactions. I do believe when he's in his burst form that his burst boosted normal attacks will count as burst damage, which you can easily test this by just pairing him with Beto and seeing if his burst normal attacks trigger Beto's elemental burst chain lightning or not. If it doesn't, Wavebreaker's Fin will be good there, because then you can just increase his elemental burst damage in high energy teams. He does have a 80 energy cost, and Raiden Shogun, who is a excellent electro battery, is a 90 energy cost, giving you a minimum, if you have two other 40s, that would be, let's see here, I'm bad with math, so bear with me. 250 energy, you can get up to a maximum of, I want to say, if you use a 280 cost with the 290 costs, you can get up to 340 total cost. And some people said, even at Refinement Rank 1, that with enough energy, Wavebreaker's Fin can out-damage the output of the catch. The catch is always going to be helpful. Once again, test this with Beto if you have her first to see if Cyno triggers Beto's burst procs with his burst normals. If he does not, then it does mean it is elemental burst damage instead of normal attack damage. And we'll get the burst damage 32% and burst crit rate 12% from the catch. The catch is fish to play. You can get it all the way up to Refinement 5 without needing to search for chests, roll on gacha, or forge anything. You just gotta be patient enough with those fish. Or know a lot of friends who don't care about their fish. As always, I'm going to say Black Cliff weapons are better than people give them credit for. Black Cliff weapons are all crit damage weapons, and Black Cliff Pole has 55.1% of it. And even though Cyno does get damage from his elemental reactions, he still does want attack. That is why his signature weapon is designed to funnel some of that elemental mastery back into his attack. As for 3-star weapons go, White Tassel, could be good if he does work with Beto, because if he does work with Beto, that does mean his burst attacks are considered normal attack damage, and would get the normal attack increase from the White Tassel. Mine is only Refinement 4, I foddered a few too many of them before deciding, hey, this is a decent weapon, let's keep one. As at Refinement 5, it will do 48%, but if you only have Refinement 1, it still does a fairly decent 24% normal attack damage increase. I'm not too sure what Crescent Pike does. I'm just going to read Infusion Needle to see if it would be of any benefit. After picking up an elemental orb particle, normal and charge attacks deal additional damage equal to 20% of attack. Maybe. The physical damage bonus would be completely wasted on him, but that will require... Oh, let's go to his talents now and see if we can't put the debate to bed. Calls upon the Divine Spirit to indwell him, morphing into the Pact Swarm Path Cleaver. Cyno's normal charge and plunging attacks will be converted to electro damage that cannot be overridden. Cyno's elemental mastery and resistance to interruption will increase, and he gains immunity to electro charge damage. So that would have me consider that, since it doesn't say... Like, I'm going to compare that to the wording on Raiden Shogun's. I'm not going to read this all since it's a wall of text. Will be considered elemental burst damage. Cyno's is lacking that, so scratch anything about Wavebreaker's Fin or the catch. But White Tassel and maybe also even Crescent Pike, if you're willing to deal with the throwaway physical damage stat, could be decent options for him. One thing I will say, though, is Cyno does struggle with energy. He has an 80 cost burst, so you're going to want high energy recharge and or a battery with him. The one thing to offset this, though, is Chasmic Soul Flare when it's doing the Mortuary Rite, which is his in a burst version of it, does still grant elemental particles, so you can build up energy while you are in burst. I have about 140 elemental recharge. I'd actually wager with about 160 on him. You could probably, with no battery, him being the only electro in the party, get this back on cooldown if you're staying on the field for the full 18 seconds of Cyno, just by defeating trash mobs and getting more particles from the activations of the Mortuary Rite. We will test whether or not for sure that is accurate information in a little bit of a section we have after this. but we also do need to go over exactly what the Chasmic Soul Flare does. Performs a swift thrust, dealing electro damage to opponents along his path. That's pretty simple. It has a 7.5 second cooldown out of his burst and a 3 second cooldown in his burst. And when Cyno is under the Sworn Path Cleaver state triggered by the Sacred Rite Wolf Swiftness, he will instead unleash a Mortuary Rite that deals thunderous AoE damage and extends the duration of Pact Sworn Path Cleaver. As we can see, the Mortuary Rite stats are for the burst-infused form. His normal attacks are pretty worthless if you don't intend to main him. I currently have Cyno for like 90% or more of my current Friendship Farm team's DPS output, so having this at least up at 6 makes it so he's not hitting like an absolute wet noodle when he's out of his burst. As for Cyno's constellations, I have Constellation 2, and I would say, it's only really worth it if you're already whaling for characters and have the disposable income to go for. If you don't have disposable income, don't go for it. I'm only able to do so on my current level of income because I currently have no bills to pay. I am currently a parasite to society, living with my mom. My dad is unfortunately not around anymore. It's not because he left, it's because he left this plane of existence. So rest in peace, my dad. I'll talk more about that later in a different series that is more near and dear to my heart and has a bit more to tie in with my dad's actual passing than that. But because I have a little bit more financial freedom than some people at this point in time, I am going for a few extra constellations. Constellation 1, after using Sacred Rite Wolf Swiftness, Cyno's normal attack speed will be increased by 20% for 10 seconds. So that's after using his burst, his normal attack speed will increase by 20% for the base duration of the burst. The 8 seconds you can get by using Mortuary Rite during the burst will not be affected by this. Featherfall, if the Judification effect of his passive talent Featherfall Judgment is triggered during Secret Rite Chasmic Soulfarer, the duration will increase. The duration of this increase will be refreshed. So you can have it for the full 20 seconds because if you've played Cyno at any level above level 20, you'll know that he has an eye flashing over the screen when you do his burst. And if you use your burst while that eye is visible, it'll flash gold and unleash an even more powerful version of his elemental skill during his burst. So if you hit those events correctly, you will keep refreshing the duration of this 20% attack speed increase and be able to maintain it for the whole duration of the burst. You obviously do need to have his passive talent Featherfall Judgment, which is what gives you the eye flashing on screen, in order to obtain the benefit of this portion of the constellation. Constellation 2 is a really big one because it changes up how his artifact builds can go. When Cyno's normal attacks hit opponents, regardless of whether they are out of burst or in burst, so extra nail in the coffin for no, he's not going to work with the catch or Wavebreaker's fin, unfortunately. The electro damage bonus his electro damage bonus will increase by 10% for 4 seconds. This effect can be triggered once every 0.1 seconds, max 5 stacks. I do believe that 0.1 second cap is because I do believe Cyno does have some multi-hit normal attacks in his burst chain, and that will, I believe, make it so only the first hit of that multi-hit will actually give you a stack. For his other constellations that I did not go for, I can't really speak too much on. 3 and 5 are just levels to his burst at 3 and skill at 5 respectively. Number 4 is when Cyno is in the Pact Sworn Path Clearer state, triggered by Sacred Rite Wolf Swiftness. After he triggers Electrocharge, Superconduct, Overloaded, Quicken, Aggravate, Hyper Bloom, or an Electro Swirl, he will restore 3 elemental energy for all nearby party members, except himself. This effect can occur 5 times within one use of Wolf Swiftness, so it allows Cyno to become a battery for another character that he's trading off DPS duties with. Like if for some reason your Raiden Shogun doesn't have absolutely absurd energy generation already, you can get there. That could also be helpful with just a C6 Raiden Shogun if you have that like I do, where combining Raiden Shogun's cooldown reduction and Cyno's extra batterying, you can have everything coming off cooldown 5 seconds before it normally would with full energy. I do believe Raiden Shogun can just do that on her own, though, when well built, so maybe this is more for just Cyno, just helping his teammates out who aren't already really good for energy generation, but it does allow Cyno to work as a battery. And now we have Raiment just scales. After using Sacred Right Wolf Swiftness, his burst, or triggering the Judification effect of the passive talent Featherfall Judgment, also known as using his E in burst in time with the eye flashing on screen, Cyno will gain 4 stacks of the Day of the Jackal effect. When he hits opponents with normal attacks, he will consume 1 stack of Day of the Jackal to fire off 1 Dust Stalker bolt. You fire off 3 Dust Stalker bolts when you do hit it in time with the eye, so you'll be getting 4 extra bolts in time with the eye. Day of the Jackal lasts for 8 seconds, max 8 stacks. It will be cancelled once Pact Sworn Path Clear ends. Maximum of 1 Dust Stalker bolt can be unleashed this way every 0.4 seconds. You must first unlock the eye passive talent to gain any benefit from this. Oh yeah, back to his passive talents real quickly, now that we know. This one is really important. While Cyno is in the Pact Sworn Path Clear state, activated by Sacred Right Wolf Swiftness, Cyno will enter the End Seer stance at intervals if he activates Secret Right Chasmic Soulfarer while affected by this stance. He will activate the Judification effect, increasing the damage of his Secret Right Chasmic Soulflare by 35%, so it's bonus damage in addition to just 300% of Cyno's attack as electro damage, and firing off 3 Deathstalker bolts that deal the aforementioned 100% electro damage each, 100% of attack as electro damage each. Deathstalker bolt is considered elemental skill damage. Then we have Authority over the 9 bows, or bows. Cyno's damage values will be increased based on his elemental mastery as follows. Pact Sworn Path Clear's normal attack damage is increased by 150% of his elemental mastery. And Duststalker Bolt damage from his passive talent Featherfall Judgment is increased by 250% of his elemental mastery. So that 396 elemental mastery I have on him is being put to good use. The Gift of Silence is just an exploration passive, gives him 25% more rewards when dispatched on a Sumeru expedition for 20 hours. And if you're coming here from version 1.0, have not played the game since launch, have just been waiting for Cyno, and don't realize this yet, a unit can still be in your party when on an expedition now. Now, back to his constellation, I will say, unless you are doing it for the entertainment value and can make more money by going for a C6 than you would spend on that C6, do not go for a C6 on any character. This one looks complicated and flashy, but it just really bubbles down to like 16 extra of those Duststalker bolts per burst. So, like 30,000 extra damage. It's not as crazy as something like Yelan's Constellation 6, which I would still not recommend unless you're either stupid like I am or able to make more money than you spent on it off of the content you can make with it. Because that adds like 150 to 200,000 damage from those 5 additional just free charge shots from your normal attacks after activating her burst. Now, the last and probably most important thing is artifacts. I'm doing a full 4-piece Thundering Fury. I have seen a 2-piece Thundering Fury and 2-piece 18% attack. I've also seen 2-piece Thundering Fury, 2-piece 80 Elemental Mastery, or just 4-piece Gilded Dreams, and particularly for comps. Well, actually, Cyno wanting both attack and Elemental Mastery, it would be pretty decent to even run it if he's not the only Electro and get some of the attack and some extra Elemental Mastery. I have crit rate on the weapon, so I'm running crit damage on the circlet. That is also my offset because my crit damage circlets on Thundering Fury are absolute booty. This isn't that much better, but at least it's better than none of them having Elemental Mastery or any crit stat. On my goblet, I am actually running attack percent because, well, I get 50% electro damage from the Constellation 2. If you are on Constellation 1 or lower, I would still recommend the electro damage goblet over the attack goblet. And for the Sands, I am running Elemental Mastery, because that does with both some of his passive talents, his Ascension passives, and his signature weapon does add to my attack, and also boosts the damage of the Dendro Elemental reactions. And with that, the Feather is pretty standard. Feathers always have attack percent, so I've got Elemental Mastery, crit rate, and energy recharge as good stats, and HP as a throwaway. This one ended up being a little bit of a Thanos piece, pretty sad, but I do still have nearly 12% crit rate on it, so that's all fine and good. And on the Thunderbird's Mercy, we unfortunately did not hit a single crit rate roll, but I kept it because I was having energy problems with the team I'm currently running Cyno in. So aside from the little bit above average energy recharge and the below average crit rate, this is also a pretty good Thanos piece. The HP main stat is always going to be there on a flower, if you did not know that already. And now with that, let's go beat up one of our favorite plant volunteers with my Friendship Farm team. Pyro Regisvine, your time has come. I am using Candace, Sucrose, and Barbara for support of Cyno here because, well, none of them are Friendship 10 yet, so I'm going to get them to Friendship 10. And because I wanted to see just how good or bad Cyno's energy generation when no battery or just second Electro unit was present. Because any second Electro unit can be a pseudo battery just from the electro resonance producing electro particles on electro reactions. We will go ahead and use Barbara and Sucrose to knock down our plant friend. And that is a very quick death on the plant friend. Cyno did generate a little bit of energy back there from just what he was getting in his burst form. And once again, if you're fighting multiple enemies, you are going to be getting more energy back. I'd say about between 3 and 4 is the sweet spot of number of enemies you want to deal with during the burst form in order to have a chance of getting it back on cooldown. With that, I will say Cyno is probably much better suited for clearing big groups of enemies as opposed to single targets. Quiet, Cyno. But with that, that's where we're going to leave this review and showcase. Overall rating, I wouldn't say he's crazy busted. I don't think he obsoletes Kaching one patch after she gained relevance either. With that, we're going to just give you one last little tidbit of what is to come before we close out this Genshin Impact video. That is, oh boy, we going all in for Nilou. So we'll look forward to that sometime, hopefully later tonight, maybe early tomorrow morning. It might be early tomorrow morning, just depending on how many hours ahead of me you are when viewing this. I am on Central Standard Time here in the United States, also known as UTC-5. I will try to record my Nilou summons.
I'm not the best judge of other people's sense of humor.
As soon as she goes live. But I cannot promise it being my actual video of that being up before, say 9:30-ish or so UTC-5 tonight. So, with that, I hope you've enjoyed this video, WhalePod. If you have, make sure to like, comment, and sub to the channel if you have not done so already. All 3 of those help me out immensely and cost you only a few moments of your time. And if you do sub to the channel, make sure to hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all my latest uploads. Now, with that all out of the way, I hope you all are having fantastic days, WhalePod. And until next time, this is Captain Whale, signing off.